Good evening. What I wanted us to talk about in the next few minutes for our devotional is changing the world or the power of small things. We're going to talk about a little of both of those. I know so much today you hear about changing the world, and we talk about people setting big goals like, I'm working for world peace. I'm working to save the whales. I'm working to wipe out world hunger. But it reminds me of an old song lyric that I remember that kind of stuck with me. I'd love to change the world, but I don't know what to do, so I'll leave it up to you. So that the world can get paralyzed in trying to do great big things without getting the little things right first. And sometimes that can bleed over into the church. We want to take the gospel of Christ to the world. We want to win the world for Christ. That is the truth. We really do. But we live day to day, and that's what God wants us to do. We have a wonderful, loving, warm, generous church here, and there's a number of things you can do. I noticed the bulletin today, you can pray. And we talked about prayer. Bob did a good job in the Bible class this morning, did a great job, and he talked about prayer. And there's all types of prayers. You pray for others, and there's probably 4 dozen names in the bulletin that you can pray for. You can do things for others. Jesus made this commandment. He said, they asked Jesus, what's the greatest commandment? And he said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, strength, mind, and soul. And basically what Jesus is saying, don't let anyone or anything get in between you and your relationship with God. And likened to that, love your neighbor as yourself. That's the tough part. They asked him, what does that mean? And then he told them the parable of the Good Samaritan. And the Good Samaritan was willing to sacrifice to help others. And later in the New Testament, it says, especially to those of the household of faith. So we want to do right for our brothers and sisters. This church needs you. You need your church family, and your church family needs you. The analogy that the Bible makes of the body being the body, Christ is the head of the church. We're the body. We get things done on this earth through us. And there's an argument about, well, I'm not the ear, I'm not the nose, I'm not the hand, I'm not the foot, but we work together beautifully as a team to get what's accomplished for God on this earth. I know you've heard me quote her before, Mother Teresa. I certainly do not agree with her religious views, but I do think she was a wonderful woman, and I think she had the best things for people at heart, trying to do what is right for other people. And what she said is, we cannot do great things. We can only do small things with great love, and that's what we can do. We can check on our other people, we can pray, one thing I would tell you is we can fellowship. This church gives you an opportunity to fellowship, and one thing, and I've said before and I'll say it again, we really can't love people that we don't know, so we have to get to know each other. And I think this church gives you many, many opportunities. We've had many. Vacation Bible School, a wedding shower, a funeral here, so many things on the book bag supplies. So many things are going on in this church, and you can volunteer and help. You can get to know others. One other thing, if somebody invites you to go to lunch or to one of the connection groups, go. Get to know them. Jerry Jenkins always said, if you can get people to put their feet under a table to eat, Jerry was always about eating, for sure. Me too. But if you could get people to put their feet under a fellowship table, it was a good way to get to know others. What I'd like to do for the remainder, is I've had the privilege as an elder to address the seniors, the graduating seniors. And when we first moved in this building about 6 or 7 years ago, I gave a talk. It was about changing the world. And this was for young people, for sure, but there's a lot of good things for us adults that you can really sink your teeth into on changing the world. And it's the article I read was by Admiral William McRaven, and it's Life Lessons from Navy SEAL Training. And he talks about the basic training for the Navy SEALs, which was certainly intense. It's in San Diego. It caught my eye because I was in the military. I was in the U.S. Army in the 1970s, and I took my basic training in Fort Campbell, Kentucky. It was still pretty difficult, not as difficult, granted, and admittedly, as the Navy SEAL training, but it was pretty difficult. But I learned a lot. I learned a lot about military training, military discipline, and military teamwork. And I think if you will listen to some of this, you can relate it to the church too. So I'm going to read, he's got 7 things that he talks about. I'm just going to read them to you. Once I finish, the lesson will be yours and we'll have the invitation. Number 1 of 7. Every morning in basic SEAL training, my instructors, who at the time were all Vietnam veterans, would show up in my barracks room, and the first thing they would inspect was your bed. If you did it right, the corners would be square, the covers pulled tight, the pillow centered just under the headboard, and the extra blanket folded neatly at the foot of the rack. That's Navy talk for bed. It was a simple task, mundane at best, but every morning we were required to make our bed to perfection. It seemed a little ridiculous at the time, particularly in light of the fact that we were aspiring to be real warriors, tough, battle-hardened SEALs. But the wisdom of this simple act has been proven to me many times over. If you make your bed every morning, you will have accomplished the first task of the day. It will give you a small sense of pride, and it will encourage you to do another task, and another, and another. By the end of the day, that one task completed will have turned into many tasks completed. Making your bed will also reinforce the fact that little things in life matter. If you can't do the little things right, you will never do the big things right. And if by chance you have a miserable day, you will come home to a bed that you made, and a made bed gives you encouragement that tomorrow will be better. If you want to change the world, start off by making your bed. Number 2, during SEAL training, the students are broken down into boat crews. Each crew is 7 students, 3 on each side of a small rubber boat, and the one coxswain to help guide the dinghy. Every day, your boat crew forms up on the beach and is instructed to get through the surf zone and paddle several miles down the coast. In the winter, the surf off San Diego can get to be 8 to 10 feet high, and it is exceedingly difficult to paddle through the plunging surf unless everyone digs in. Every paddle must be synchronized to the stroke of the coxswain. Everyone must exert equal effort or the boat will turn against the wave and be unceremoniously tossed back on the beach. For the boat to make it to its destination, everyone must paddle. You can't change the world alone. You will need some help. And to truly get from your starting point to your destination takes friends, family, colleagues, the goodwill of strangers, and a strong coxswain to guide them. If you want to change the world, find someone to help you paddle. Number 3, over a few weeks of difficult training, my SEAL class, which started with 150 men, was down to just 42. There were now 6 boat crews of 7 men each. I was in the boat crew with the tall guys, but the best boat crew we had was made up of smaller guys. No one was over about 5'6". This boat crew had 1 American Indian, 1 African American, 1 Polish American, 1 Greek American, 1 Italian American, and 2 tough kids from the Midwest. They out-paddled, outran, and outswam all the other boat crews. The big men in the other boats would make good-natured fun of the little flippers the small crew put on their feet prior to every swim. But somehow these little guys from every corner of the nation and the world always had the last laugh, swimming faster than everyone and reaching the shore long before the rest of us. SEAL training was a great equalizer. Nothing mattered but your will to succeed. Not your color, not your ethnic background, not your education, and not your social status. If you want to change the world, measure people by the size of their heart, not by the size of their flippers. Number 4, several times a week, the instructors would line up a class and do uniform inspection. It was exceptionally thorough. Your hat had to be perfectly starched, your uniform immaculately pressed, and your belt buckle shiny and void of any smudges. But it seemed that no matter how much effort you put into starching your hat or pressing your uniform or polishing your belt buckle, it just wasn't good enough. The instructors would find something wrong. For failing the uniform inspection, the student had to run fully clothed into the surf zone and then, wet from head to toe, roll around on the beach until every part of your body was covered with sand. The effect was known as a sugar cookie. You stayed in that uniform the rest of the day, cold, wet, and sandy. There were many students who just couldn't accept the fact that all their effort was in vain, that no matter how hard they tried to get the uniform right, it was unappreciated. Those students didn't make it through training. Those students didn't understand the purpose of the drill. You are never going to have a perfect uniform. Sometimes, no matter how well you prepare or how well you perform, you still end up as a sugar cookie. It's just the way life is sometimes. If you want to change the world, get over being a sugar cookie and keep moving forward. Number 5. Every day during the training, you were challenged with multiple physical events. Long runs, long swims, obstacle courses, hours of calisthenics, something designed to test your mettle. Every event had standards, times that you had to meet. If you failed to meet those standards, your name was posted on a list at the end of the day, and at the end of the day, those on the list were invited to a circus. A circus was 2 hours of additional calisthenics designed to wear you down, to break your spirit, to force you to quit. No one wanted a circus. A circus meant, for that day, you didn't measure up. A circus meant more fatigue, and more fatigue meant that the following day would be more difficult, and more circuses were likely. But at some time during SEAL training, everyone made the circus list. Yet, an interesting thing happened to those who were constantly on the list. Over time, those students who did 2 hours of extra calisthenics got stronger and stronger. The pain of the circuses built inner strength, built physical resiliency. Life is filled with circuses. You will fail. You will likely fail often. It will be painful. It will be discouraging. At times, it will test you to your very core. But if you want to change the world, don't be afraid of the circuses. Number 6, during the land warfare phase of training, the students are flown out to San Clemente Island near San Diego. The waters off San Clemente are a breeding ground for great white sharks. To pass SEAL training, there are a series of long swims that must be completed. One is a night swim. Before the swim, the instructors joyfully brief the trainees on all the species of sharks that inhabit the waters off San Clemente. The instructors assure you, however, that no student has ever been eaten by a shark, at least not recently. But you are also taught that if a shark begins to circle your position, stand your ground. Do not swim away. Do not act afraid. And if the shark, hungry for a midnight snack, darts towards you, then summon up all your strength and punch him in the snout, and he will turn and swim away. There are a lot of sharks in the world. If you hope to complete the swim, you will have to deal with them. So if you want to change the world, don't back down from the sharks. Finally, number 7, in SEAL training there is a bell, a brass bell that hangs in the center of the compound for all the students to see. All you have to do to quit is ring this bell. Ring the bell and you no longer have to wake up at 5 o'clock. Ring the bell and you no longer have to do the freezing cold swims. Ring the bell and you no longer have to do the runs, the obstacle course, the PT, and you no longer have to endure the hardships of training. Just ring the bell. If you want to change the world, don't ever ring the bell. Life is hard. We all have obstacles. It will not be easy, but start each day with a task completed. Find someone to help you through life. Respect everyone. Know that life is not fair and that you will fail often. But if you step up when the times are toughest, face down the bullies, lift up the downtrodden, and never, ever give up. If you will do these things, then your generation and the generations that follow will live in a far better world than the one we have today. May God bless each of you, and may God continue to bless this good church. If you have a need to be baptized into Christ this time, or if you need the prayers for the church, please come forward at this time.